Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 806, Richard is joining us via the phone, so the audio isn't quite as good as it would be if it was directly from Teams, but it still sounds good to me. We'll be talking about build, what was announced there, what's coming for Windows, not Windows 10, but Windows, and is it a rebrand? Are we going to see something new soon? Who knows? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about new builds of Windows 10, smart home, how Amazon could be using your smart home devices to give other people access to the internet, your devices. So we've mentioned that in the past, but we're going to talk about that again. Drum machines and a whole load of stuff. So let's get straight to Richard. Richard, good evening.
Good evening.
And joining us from deepest, darkest Wales.
Yes, I am. Hence, I'm on the mobile phone. Nothing to do with Wales, and everything to do with Teams being utter pants.
Yeah, you couldn't get no Teams audio, so it's one of those strange things. It either works or it doesn't work, and because they try and hide the complexities behind it, you don't get to choose this. Many of the settings. When it doesn't work, you've no troubleshooting.
Yeah.
I had that problem at work. Some people it doesn't work and you don't know why, and they can't fix it, and you don't get any options.
Yes, I mean, I don't wish to diss Teams too much, but I would point out that it wins that it couldn't see my microphone and speakers. However, Zoom worked perfectly. Google Meet worked perfectly. Teams, no, not at all. No, sorry, your microphone and speakers aren't working. No, Teams, I think you find what's not working is you.
Well, anyway, we'll go through the call. Good job, I got the Teams dial-in option.
Yes, exactly. That is working very well, actually. Apart from terrible music.
Yeah. Which is it's not our theme music, but the Teams whole music.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so there was a few things I wanted to talk about this week, because Gary's not with us this week. Hopefully, I don't think he's back next week, back the week after. But there was a few things that we didn't get to talk about last week. There's some smart home stuff, some Windows build news, and a few other bits and pieces. But let's start with build. I briefly mentioned it in the news sort of summary last week, but I thought we could have a bit more time on it. Well, there wasn't a huge amount of Windows news there then.
No, there wasn't at all, was there? It was I'd say quite a strange event, really. I mean, it is very clearly now being pitched towards developers and certainly, and a lot of my Microsoft fans are out in force saying, well, it's for developers, and that's why there's no consumer use. And no consumer use because Microsoft is not a consumer company unless it's got an Xbox and a brand in front of it. So, but there was very little in the way of Windows news, to be honest. Lots and lots of stuff about Azure, and of course that weird thing that happened with the ARM the development kit.
Yeah. So we'll come back and ask you about that. But did you notice we got that one paragraph about Windows? Satya Nadella had in his keynote. Yeah. He just said there are big things coming down the line, which my take on that is, well, this is the developer conference for the year. So if you're not going to share it, when's it going to happen? It was a bit strange. I presume there must be a separate Windows event coming at some point during the year, because otherwise, this is build is for developers. This is the event you want to actually make sure developers are on board and know what's happening, because you can't spring it on them with months to spare. Yeah, exactly. So I picked out a couple of things. It said there was. First of all, I noticed that they mentioned or they alluded to the store, didn't they? They said that it's unlocked greater economic opportunity for developers and creators. And then further on, he says a new open platform to build and distribute and monetize applications. So I guess the rumors we're hearing that the Windows Store is getting a revamp and it's going to be more open, and that's what that's alluding to.
I guess so, although the danger of making it too open is, of course, you do want these apps to be verified and checked before they go in the store. So I guess they can perhaps, cut down the fees they're charging developers, to try and make it more attractive. But I'm not sure how you can avoid doing some kind of curation. Otherwise, it could end up being a free-for-all. I mean, we've seen what's gone into Google Play Store, which is, is curated to a certain extent. But there's been a few issues there. And, of course, the Apple Store is very heavily curated, so you're less likely to get any nasty. So I guess it's going to be a fine line for them to tread. But
I guess the problem is it's a desktop operating system, so people are used to just installing applications via installers. So I don't know. I'm not sure if there's really that much point in a Microsoft Store for desktop apps, certainly for games, but is there a huge demand? I mean, companies can already do their own corporate stores, so I'm a little confused by what they're hoping to achieve there.
Yeah, I think the rumors were sort of that as well as a reduction in the charges for games and paid applications, but there was also the developers could put their own MSIs in there or EXEs in there. You could get Chrome in there. They're really lifting all the all the restrictions away to make it an open platform, which is one way of going, I suppose, in a way that, like, if you go on Debian or whatever, you can, there's whole packages that you can get on there, but they're not curated as such. They're just a central repository for them.
I guess so, yeah.
And the other thing that I thought was interesting as well is he said, I've been self-hosting it for the past few months, and I'm incredibly excited about the next generation of Windows. And nowhere is the 10 number mentioned anywhere. So do you think there's a potential we'll get a rebrand?
I can easily imagine them calling it just Windows, plain Windows from now. I mean, I've seen some hilarious things where people have said, well, maybe it'll be Windows 11. I don't think so. But I can imagine them going, them just calling it Windows and ditching the number, because that's now been around for a while. So maybe they want to move on from that branding. Perhaps the Windows 10 branding might be, I say toxic, but it's got over 1 billion users, so it would seem to be a strange thing to do that. But yeah, I mean, I can imagine perhaps they may just call it Windows and just ditch the 10, and then there's no longer that whole feeling of it's version 10, it's version 8, it's version 7. It's just Windows, and it's always being serviced. Which I think that's what they always said they'd do with Windows 10, it'd be perpetually serviced. So why call it Windows 10? Just call it Windows.
Yeah, which maybe that, when they were reviewing Windows 10X and decided to kill that off, they just thought, we'll just put everything in Windows. They can turn on and off features remotely now anyway. Like you said, it's serviced quarterly or half yearly with the bigger updates. So yeah, there's no need. So maybe this version of Windows that comes out 20H1 or 20H2, it'll be 21H2.
21H2.
It comes out. Yeah, if it comes out this year. They can put some new UI polish on there and make the UI, that's all relatively easy to do, but to open the store up and call it Windows. Yeah. The new open Windows or something like that.
Exactly. I mean, that would seem to be a straightforward thing to do. I mean, again, being a bit of a nerd, what I'm hoping to see is some of the, the containery stuff that was promised for Windows 10X appear in Windows itself. But yeah, I think it'd be a good thing to ditch the number 10 and just call it Windows. But then, I guess the slight problem with that is you have situations like Windows on ARM, which is not really Windows because it can't run all the things that Windows 10 can run. So, and that's of course that down that path leads the way to Windows RT and things.
Yeah, I actually did see someone post an article on how to get desktop Windows on Windows RT, the original ones.
I'm surprised some of the Microsoft never published the unlock code. So I guess perhaps there's some copyright or some kind of pattern there. You saw these devices are now, they're out there. They're not bad ARM tablets. So surely you should just unlock them and let the makers just have them.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I thought maybe I'll dig one of my Surface RTs out because I've got two of them. I think I've got at least two of them, so I think I can have a go at that.
I mean, I had an RT and an RT2, and they were great machines. They were really good machines. I mean, I was very sad that people didn't understand them because, of course, this is a problem. They're called Windows machines. You expect them to run the Windows apps, and of course, you got no chance on those machines. But I think it's still an issue. Even now with Windows ARM, you can't just call it Windows because people expect to be able to run all the weird stuff they run on their Windows 10 boxes they do now. And of course, it's better, much, much better now, but it's still not perfect.
I remember with my Surface RT, think I've told this story before, but when I went to CES the first time with this RT, and the years before, I was always hunting around searching for plug sockets, and you'd see everybody led across hallway floors with power sockets, valuable power sockets, trying to charge laptops up. And my chargers, I left it in the hotel because I didn't need it. I could use it all day long and then go back and charge at night. It was a revelation for me.
Exactly. Although to be fair, modern power laptops can now do an all-day charge, which I think is one of the things that undermine the argument for Windows and ARM devices that modern Intel-based laptops or AMD-based laptops can do an all-day run now. So the whole it's great. I've got my Surface laptop, whatever Surface laptop, my Surface Pro X is it? I think that's the ARM-based one that can run for umpteen hours, but we don't really need that now because your Surface Pro 7 can probably get you through a day as well.
Yeah, that's true. Because as you mentioned before, Microsoft and Qualcomm announced it for Microsoft, I think, didn't they? A new developer kit for Windows. Yeah,
I mean that was really weird, actually. I mean, I've not seen an explanation for what exactly happened there, but certainly that was originally to be announced at Microsoft Build, and then Qualcomm announced it the day before, and there was a big flurry. There was a huge big flurry the week before. Actually, everything in Build, that's still on that date, apart from this one thing. You can now talk about this because it's going to happen on this date. So, okay. So we announced so Qualcomm, they've announced a whole load of new chips and things, and they also announced the Microsoft Dev Kit for ARM-based devices, which is... Yeah, I was surprised that couldn't have been held back until Build, because that for me would have been the big story of Build, that they are, they're really going to try and push this, their ARM story by having this developer kit. But the fact it was allowed to come out the day before makes you wonder how bothered Microsoft really are about it. Certainly for Windows apps. I think for writing, say, Azure apps, I think there's great potential this kind of device being shoved into data centers to allow you to sort of do pipeline testing stuff for, ARM-based apps. But perhaps maybe more ARM or maybe more cloud-based and Azure than maybe Windows Desktop.
So this developer kit that they announced, I would have thought there was one already. What have the developers been using?
Well, yes, I mean they've been using the Pro X, haven't they, or Samsung's laptops, all of which are very good. I think this is kind of their way of saying, well, here's a cheaper version. So whereas those are put on the laptops, or Pro X is a tablet-based device, this is just going to be like a... I suspect it'll be a Mac Mini-sized thing that you'll provide and keep on the screen for. And obviously, the hope is be cheaper than going for Surface Pro X or the very few Windows and ARM devices that are out there compared to Intel and AMD-based machines. But of course, one of the problems was they were incredibly vague about what it's going to be. I mean, there was virtually nothing in the way of hardware specs. We can speculate based on what else Qualcomm announced. I mean, I think it's going to be a Snapdragon 70. I think is a current leading contender for what's going to be inside it. But there was frustratingly little detail about it. There was no pricing for it, and just a case of it's coming during the summer. So, I mean, if you had to think of a thing that the Microsoft clearly don't seem to care that much about, it would be this. It's like, I don't really think you're that bothered then, are you? If you're giving us this little information about it just before your primary, your premier developer event. And this is how this very key, if ARM is that key to the future of Windows, I would have expected a much bigger splash than this. So I was pleased to see it, but disappointed it wasn't given higher billing if Microsoft is truly serious about Windows and ARM. I think they're very serious about Azure and ARM, but I'm not so sure about Windows and ARM.
And do you think they're... I just get the impression that over the last 12 months there's been a bit of soul-searching around the Windows team and the leadership. Look at the direction of Windows, and they've got ARM, they've got 10X, and they had all these different options, and Windows Core and Windows 10 and everything else. And I think that at some point, they've just gone, okay, guys, let's simplify this. We know what works. We know what pays the bills. We know what's not working. So things like 10X, they've cut and just focusing on core Windows now.
Exactly. Well, perhaps let's not use the word cool. Yeah, I mean, I think you've got it. I think you've got it in a nutshell there. I mean, we kind of, I guess, looking back on it with the benefit of hindsight, we kind of saw it coming when they axed the Surface Hub 2X. That was probably the first time there was a fairly major shake-up happening in the Windows team. Then obviously the Neo that disappeared, and now we know 10X is effectively dead in the water, at least in the way that we imagined it was going to be delivered. So. I think you're right. I mean, they've seen what's happened in the last year in terms of shift to home working. I mean, Microsoft has colossal amounts of telemetry that comes from its users, so they know what people are doing at home and at work. They have a very good idea about what their customers actually want. I think they realise that all of these moonshots of doing 10X, of doing the ARM-based machines, perhaps that's just not really going to ever be successful. They can't compete with Apple in the tablet space. They've learned that painfully, but they can compete in the enterprise space. And interestingly, a lot of things that Microsoft are doing in the enterprise space, particularly hardware-wise, it's very interesting. For example, the removable SSDs on the Surface laptops and the Surface Pro 7, is it 7 Plus, I think? They have removable hard disks, which is that for an enterprise is brilliant. That's what enterprises want. To just destroy the disks or upgrade them without needing to send them to our machine back. Whereas you look at, say, Apple devices, they're getting ever more. They're mounting these chips on boards and things. So I think from that way, Microsoft knows what their enterprise customers want. I think they're probably quite happy to hand over the customer base to use iPads and things. So okay, you can have them. We'll keep running the cloud services and keep our enterprise customers happy.
Yeah, and I suppose. If you're if you've got an iPad and you're using Office 365, Outlook for mail and Excel, and you're using all these apps on OneDrive and everything else, then they're not that. It doesn't matter that it's not a Windows device.
Exactly. I mean, Microsoft. I mean, they really don't care as long as someone's paying that Microsoft 365 subscription. And I think they've looked at what all the various things the Windows team has been to do, and what I hope has happened is they said, right, let's just focus on this one thing and make it as good as it can possibly be, and just focus on that, because obviously there has been some famous quality issues with Windows 10 in recent years. So I'm wondering if perhaps they're saying, right, no more distractions in our team. You're going to have to actually get this thing finished, working, and reliable and stable. And perhaps that's the way they're going now, which I think makes a lot of sense. It's just, as a enthusiast of tech, I'm sad that 10X won't come out, and I'm sad that I think that Windows and ARM is also looking like it's possibly going in the same direction.
Yeah,
hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think we would have loved 10X. I've got it. I'm on a device here that runs, but but you wonder how many people would have actually used it, as opposed to how many people actually using the full version of Windows, the retail version now.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. I mean, that's not to say that there weren't some really cool things in our build, though. I mean, the one thing that I thought was very exciting was the GPT-3 stuff in the Power in the Power App stuff, which I thought was effectively, it's because the Power platform is Microsoft's latest way of trying to get more citizen coders involved. It's a shame Gary isn't here, because I know he's very, very keen on this. And it's a great platform. I mean, I spoke to one of the people behind it, and his take was well, basically it's like Visual Basic for the next generation, because obviously we remember Visual Basic back in the day was the thing that corporates began to use to glue stuff together. It was the first thing that suddenly everyone could write, almost everyone could write Windows apps really easily. I think that the Power Platform takes that to the next level, makes it even easier for people to do stuff. We do stuff with very little code. I mean, no code, I think, it's an ambition, but I think low code is perhaps where it's going to go. And this thing is really neat, because what you do, you have your, I mean, it's the language itself used by it's PowerFX as a language. That's effectively like jumped up to Excel, which most of us understand. I think most corporate users understand Excel. But what the GPT-3 stuff does is it uses a bit of AI, machine learning, to, as you're keying in what you want to do in just natural language, it'll give you options of what it thinks what function it thinks you actually mean. And it's the demos I saw looked very impressive, where you'd say, give me a list of these things in the next 7 days, and it didn't give you a date add, a date diff function, all the stuff that you would normally have to look up online. And
Microsoft was refreshingly frank about it. They said, what we're aiming to do here, we're not aiming to take away the fact that you're going to have to understand what you're doing to a certain extent. We're trying to save you going to Stack Overflow and look things up, up online. And also, we're trying to do some training here as well. So you're being trained in how this functionality works without really realizing it's training you. So it was pretty impressive. And so that's, I thought that was probably my most interesting thing at Build, was seeing that AI, natural language processing tech being used to actually make it easier to do coding.
Yeah, that looked interesting. I mean, I've used the Power Platform for a few quick win sort of solutions at work and found it really good. I've come across. We had some scenarios where we had quotes for sort of thousands of pounds of development work to do something, and then I've done it in Power Automate in a couple of days, and it's not the most shiny glossy solution, but it's built into Teams. The front end's in Teams, the back end's in a SharePoint Excel file, and it works really well. It's simple, easy to roll out, and a quick win. So I think that's where that Power Automate really comes down to. Where I have the issue is you get so far with it, and then some bright spark will say, but can it do this? And then you get stuck sort of functionality level, and then you want to take it away, take it to code. But that's a bit like what they're talking about doing now anyway, isn't it? Where you can take that and then enhance it anyway.
Exactly, yeah. So of course, again, it's a service used by Microsoft 365 subscribers, so it's not for everyone, for starters. But again, with the amount of telemetry they're capturing, they will see the bits where users are unable to complete a business process using the Power Platform, and I would imagine they'll plug those gaps pretty quickly. I mean, I've been very impressed with it so far, because I also like to work with stuff as well. And while I'm quite happy in JavaScript and Python and C Sharp and even Visual Basic if I'm feeling very quick and dirty. I was quite surprised about how quickly one can achieve, particularly apps and things. Mobile apps and stuff just work really. It's very easy to put these things together on the Power Platform. So I was, I mean, I guess there is the risk that as you make more end users effectively programmers, you're going to have to. It could become an administration nightmare, particularly with Power Automate on the desktop, where people may start doing things that maybe admins would rather they didn't do. So there needs to be some control there, but on the whole, I think it's a move in the right direction.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, I think that's where all the interest is. And I think perhaps certainly for Windows, we're in a holding pattern while they've got all this new stuff secret working away, and so we don't get to see that. So all the big news is all the Azure and the cloud stuff, and that sort of all the platform stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
We did get a new build last week, though. But I would say
yes, we did.
It was probably the least. Yeah, it was the least exciting build we've had for some time, which is saying something.
How can you say that? The task manager's got a new icon. Wash your mouth out with such a young man.
Yeah, I mean,
with this build 21390.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it had a new icon for Task Manager and a new icon for something else. There was two icons, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was Task Manager and the MSI installer. Oh, and you can make
MSI installer.
Yeah, so and you can make the Windows Terminal preview now be your default terminal in different Windows, which is that's pretty useful actually. If I'm honest, I'll be that, but that's quite a neat thing, if I'm honest.
But I noticed in the new terminal as well, you can do. I think it's Windows and is it the tilde sign?
The
one next to the
mode.
Yeah, scroll. I love that. I use that all the time now. Yeah, I like that.
I think you should describe what it's done, what it does, and why it's called Quake Mode, Ian.
Well, it's because it kind of rather than it being in its own window, it scrolls down from the top as like an overlay, isn't it? As a upper third of your screen, just like the command prompt was in Quake, which I think is why it's called Quake Mode. And I don't think it's working on this on my. No, it's not working on my Surface laptop. I've got it on the Insider build machine. But yeah, I think it's great. It just scrolls down like that, and it saves you having to have a separate window and tab into it and everything else. So I really like that. So yeah, I've got that. I've got that on my desk machine because I use the command prompt all the time, and this is a nice quick way of jumping straight to it. I think you need the 1.9 version for it to work.
Yes, you do. Yeah, 1.9 higher. So it's the preview. It's the preview version there.
Yeah, but you don't have to be on an Insider build to have it, because I've got it on a non-Insider build machine with that feature.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, I mean, I'd say if you have to do any command line work, then the Windows terminal is an excellent place to do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have that, and I have multiple different UI layouts depending on what mode what mood I'm in. So I've got one that looks like a classic one with the the dot crawl from a CRT display. I've got one of those. I've got one which is green and black if I ever want to go back, the 80s feel. I've got one which is white on black. And I've got a few different ones with a background, and depending on what task I'm doing. But it's actually quite useful for organising yourself if you have a PowerShell one and you leave them open. So I do like it.
I was devastated when they introduced the settings screen though, because it means the wizardry of editing the .json file is no more. It's now done through settings. Oh, I mean, I know there are not all the settings that aren't there, but it was my special magic I could do, and so suddenly it's in the preferences screen. Oh dear.
Yeah, but it's easy to change. That's where I've been playing, because you can change the fonts and things and just try it and so kind of reloading it. So it's certainly good. If you don't, like I said, you don't have to be an Insider to test it. I have it pinned on my taskbar on all my machines now, and very rarely use the old command prompt on machines with that installed. It's very rare. Go back.
I mean, I've got to say, it's one of those sort of new Microsoft things. We think, okay, so I've got a single window here. It's got different tags. One tag is the old command, the Windows command shell. Another one's PowerShell, and another one is Ubuntu running Windows Linux. It all feels very, very not Microsoft as of 15 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, in the new build, you can have that as the default. So if an application launches the command prompt, that comes up instead of the old command prompt. Yeah, which is very handy. So so other than that, 21390 was a very dull build indeed.
Yeah,
we're down to 3 known issues now, though.
Yeah, but I mean, good. Maybe they're going to give us some new toys to play with soon, then, because it's been a while now. Yeah,
I'm guessing this is my speculation. I have no insider knowledge of this whatsoever, because I don't think Microsoft telling many people about their plans at the moment. But my guess is that all the fun stuff is in the RS pre-release branch, and they're not going to give us that until they've done the announcement event. Obviously, it would be pointless giving it to insiders and then doing the announcement event afterwards, talking about this new version of Windows. So I'm guessing that there'll be some event which we'll hear about. It will be, they'll say an event's coming in 2 weeks' time, and then it'll be an online event where Panos will get pumped. It'll show us what's coming up with Windows, and then possibly we'll get some of those features coming in release in the builds, the Windows Insider program, possibly. But as they can switch things on and off anyway, it doesn't even need to be going back to different builds. But I've got a feeling that's because people find a way of switching these things on anyway, don't they? So the way to avoid that is not have those features in the builds, and then stick us on pre-release, and then turn some of these features on, and that will be it would be nice. It'd be a nice way if they coordinated it so that we had the announcement on the Wednesday and the build out Wednesday evening, it's probably not going to work like that. It would be nice if they could do it that way.
Yes, definitely.
It would probably be the other way around. Bits will be leaked and released, but I'm hoping they do it that way rather than doing these controlled leaks, which we don't know if that's true or not, but I know you've speculated that that's maybe what's happened. That test the water with some of these things.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I think has been happening. Is there's been definitely some testing of the waters with various things here, and certainly I think around Fluent and around I think Sun Valley is a code name that's been bandied around for. I think there's been a few a few testings happen. So and a few and I'd be very surprised if there weren't some more leaks in the next few weeks. Because if they're going to do an event, they need to do it quite quickly, because otherwise they're going to run straight into summer, and that would be bad, because obviously the developers tend to go on vacation. So you need to really get this stuff done relatively quickly, because it's now June now actually. So they're going to have to do it really in the next 4 to 6 weeks, aren't they? I suppose.
Yeah.
If it's going to stand a chance of getting this.
If it's going to be a Q2 of half year 2,
Yeah, because I mean, I'd imagine November will have to be when 21H2 ships. So if it's going to be if it's going to be in that, you need developers coding for it really now, really soon. So it's almost like the 10X again, isn't it?
Yes. We're waiting with bated breath.
Yes, although at least it's not structural. It's just going to be changes to the shelf, as I understand it, as opposed to wholesale architectural changes beneath the scenes.
Yeah, which is always more work, but not. And I think probably the developers who work on that must get frustrated. They spend all this time working on this, this really solid, reliable core system that they've worked really hard on, and then we get excited when there's some rounded corners or something like that.
Yeah.
Spent 6 months on the architecture, and then when Rounded Corners comes out, everyone starts writing about it. But that's the nature of software development. I'm sure Gary would attest to that.
Yeah.
There was one session on the Surface Duo as well. Android development / Surface Duo. Wonder whether that was going to get left out, but they did actually talk about developing for dual screen devices.
Yes, it did, which I think was good. But again, we need to see a Duo 2 next. Well, again, 3 months, because the Duo 1 launched in August, so time is marching on. So I was pleased to see.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please carry on.
No, I was going to say there are some rumours of a Surface Duo 2 that is due to launch, not with a kickstand as some people were reporting, because that was a Microsoft patent. But I don't think that's they've just painted it now, and I don't think that'll be the case for this one. But there might be future ones. But there are some rumours about the Duo 2 coming, so we'll wait and see.
Well, good. I mean, because it has to come in, and I assume that it does feel like it's still coming, just because again in build they did at least mention it. You got some. Yeah. Because of course the key thing is the dual screen approach. So the Duo 2, I imagine, will be the same basic dual screen approach, just with more horsepower, I presume, and better cameras.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, NFC, better camera, and a bit more processing power. I noticed there was a monthly update out for the Surface Duo last week, but there wasn't huge. There were just bug fixes in that, so no sign of Android 11 yet, which would be the natural thing to announce sooner rather than later, because Google already took about Android 12.
Exactly, and Android 12 is down beta, so you would really hope that Microsoft would get a wiggle on with Android 11. It's always been how long it takes Android device makers to update their devices. One would hope Microsoft wouldn't fall into that bracket of those that take a long time to issue updates, if at all. I mean, basically, they'd be doing the month updates anyway.
Yeah, and they are doing the monthly security updates, which is good. But supposedly that a lot of the dual screen stuff isn't in 10, so they have to manually add that. Whereas in 11, it's built in. So I think perhaps it changes the way that they do the development for Android 11. They have to take out some of the code that they put in for the dual screen stuff and just use the stock Android dual screen controls.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got it on my device, and it's all working fine. I tell you, when we last talked, I mentioned about a new USB hub. I got that up and running. I don't think I plugged that in when we talked last week.
No,
sorry. Before
I did see you waving around on Twitter.
Yes, so I got all that powered up. Actually, it works really well. So it's a nice aluminium device, and it's powered. And I've got rid of all my USB hubs that were hanging off USB hubs, which was a great relief, because I had a feeling at some point all this would collapse in a giant heap of bad drivers and USB disconnects, and that none of my MIDI interfaces or audio interfaces would work. So I'm kind of relieved that I managed to get that in place before everything collapsed into a heap.
Well done.
Yeah, so that's working quite well. There was one other thing on the Surface, actually, I forgot to mention. I think we talked about the other week. The Duo has got the dual screen gaming controls for certain. I think it's 50 games. If you stream them using the Xbox Cloud or xCloud streaming service, you can use your Duo as a little sort of handheld portable gaming. I haven't tried it because I haven't got the subscription. It's not worth it for me, but it looked quite good from what I've seen.
Yes, I think so. I mean, although I say, if I was to game on phones and things, I've used touchscreens before. I'd really prefer to have some actual physical controllers I can stick on either side of the screen to actually use, a real D-pad or joystick, because I've never been a huge fan of touchscreens for joysticks and things.
No.
My thumb tends to just wander away from where it should be, and then it all goes horribly wrong. At least that's my excuse for being awful at all games, and I'm sticking to it. I tried when I tried it with an actual controller. It works quite well.
I think it would work better than touchscreen, but I suppose in a push, you're out and about, you don't want to get a controller out, then maybe that would be okay.
Yeah, definitely.
The other thing that I tried this week was one of those really cheap USB to MIDI adapters. Because I've run out of for some reason I've run out of MIDI ports on my system. I don't know why that is. It could be just the number of keyboards and devices I have, maybe.
I was going to say, I've seen the background in your room, and there's an awful lot of keyboards going on there.
Yeah, so I ran out of MIDI ports and MIDI throughs and everything else. So I got this USB adapter, £13. It's USB class compliant drivers as well, so I just plug it straight in. And on the other. So USB-C on one end, a little dongle in the middle with indicator lights on, and on the end is is MIDI in and out, which at first glance look rather illogically labelled, because the port that says MIDI out you plug into your MIDI in, and the port that says MIDI in you plug into your MIDI out, which sounds confusing. But when you think of it in terms of how you traditionally connected up MIDI devices, that's how you would do it. You would get a cable into the in, and then the out of the other one, or vice versa. So It does kind of make sense how they've labelled it. But I can see some people that aren't familiar with MIDI and that world being very confused by this and just plugging it in like it says and wondering why nothing works. But I figured it out. So MIDI, if anybody doesn't know, MIDI is the standard for synthesizers and drum machines and other things to communicate with each other. Before USB was invented, it was invented in the mid 80s, early 80s really. I think 83 was when it first shipped, with the big round DIN plugs, but it's still in use now. And of course, with a modern PC, and if you've not got an Atari ST, then you need to find some way of doing it, connecting the PC up. So that's why you need one of these interfaces. I've got a couple of different ones. I've got one that it's so old I have to manually edit the INI file to make it load the driver in Windows 10, but it still works if I do that. So I thought I'd try one of these cheap ones. So anyway, it works. I got it connected up. I even tried it with a 1986 Yamaha DX100, and it could do the note on, note off information, and also the SysX, which is like the synth's own internal code, so you can program the synth from through a PC or whatever, and that's usually where things fall over when you have the cheap MIDI interfaces. And anyway, that worked fine as well. So £13, and now with my 10-port to USB hub, I can have 10 of these adapters if I want. So anyway, it seems to work. So that's super. All up and running, along with the I was going to show you, but obviously you're on the phone, so there's no point in showing you. But you can see the pictures on my Twitter. I got that drum machine cleaned up and up and running and fixed up, and all the pen marks taken off it as well. So which is quite so. Someone. Yeah, it all still works. It sounds fantastic. So it's a Roland TR-505 from 1986. Very nice 80s sound, but someone had drawn handwritten the pad numbers on the outer casing. It looked horrible. But I was going to see whether I used terps or white spirit or something clean, and my wife said just use a bit of Vim on it. So it was not Vim or this cream anyway that she's for cleaning the kitchen, and it worked, did the job perfectly with not abrasive or anything. So yeah, so it was nice and up and running. So I showed it to her. I finished, and she's like, okay. Now, what does it do? I said, it's a drum machine from 1986. Okay. And
she said,
anyway, I've got it up. Yeah, exactly.
And how much you spend on that?
Yeah, well, I didn't care that because it wasn't working. So the only thing that it's cost me is a £9 power supply for it. So that's free. But yeah, so I got all that up and running. So I got that. I got a track using that the other day. So I plugged it in, and it sounds great. So I'm now out of space again. So I have to stop repairing things because people offer me these things now that aren't working, and I think, I can repair them.
Big room needed.
Yeah, exactly. I need my sons to move out now. I think that's so there's no choice for it, son.
Exactly.
There's not enough
time,
room
or I'm moving your bedroom to my office.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that may be the next thing. So, what I really need is to have some new smart home gear or some new dual screen devices to distract me from the music equipment. But there's not a lot coming.
Well, I'm sure.
Anyway, maybe we'll get some.
We'll show off the Neo again.
Yeah, hopefully. I see there was one thing I was going to mention, smart home related. Just before we came out to record, I saw this headline. Something we talked about a while ago that Gary raised, I think, was about Amazon US customers. They've got 1 week to opt out of your mass wireless sharing. So this is the mesh network. I think what was it? Sidewalk.
Yeah, it's called Sidewalk. Yeah, Gary did mention it a few weeks, even months ago. Because it's been on the cards for a while, but it looks like it's actually going to happen. Yeah, this is really bad. I mean, it's one of those things that it will make people's lives a lot easier, but at what cost? Because what it's going to do is it's going to be like a low bandwidth sharing, which means that all your Amazon devices, like an Echo speaker or a Ring security camera and things, are all going to become a sort of shared wireless network, effectively, creating this enormous mesh, so that if you have any wobbles with your connectivity, it should all work well because it still have a low bandwidth connection to your neighbours. And if you're setting things up, it should all work very smoothly because, again, it's all meshed up and lovely. It sounds great in theory, but in practice, whoa! I mean, it's alarming. I mean, it means I guess you're piggybacking off your neighbour's broadband, if I understand it correctly, potentially. And who would be liable? And then who's liable if you or your neighbour are using your broadband for nefarious purposes? And what about privacy? Oh, it's a nightmare. So, but this is happening, and I think Amazon's US customers, as you say, they've been given 1 week to opt out. Otherwise, it's going to happen, and that's just terrifying, really.
And I see on the article, it was an article on the Guardian. So I'll include the link on the show notes. But it was saying that most ISPs, it would be against their terms and conditions anyway for you to do this, because you're resharing your
definitely.
Yeah, with third parties. Yeah, so it's very dubious ground legally, I would guess. But I suppose that Amazon can well afford enough lawyers so that they've got that covered.
I mean, I guess so. It's just it isn't the lawyers. It's Amazon who need the lawyers, potentially their customers, if they find they're liable, or as you say, their broadband ISP takes umbrage at what's happening and decides to says they're violating their terms and conditions just because they didn't opt out. Although, to be fair to Amazon, I mean, it's not that new. I mean, I think didn't BT do something with BT routers?
a while ago, where they were like mini Wi-Fi hotspots too, unless you turn it off. So I guess it's not unprecedented, but of course we should point out this is US only at the moment, although obviously where America leads, I'm sure other worldwide customers out of Amazon are going to follow.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it just, it makes Amazon a massive player in the sort of internet accessibility space, doesn't it, suddenly, without them having to spend on infrastructure. We've done it for them.
Exactly. Exactly. They won't have to lay a single meter of fibre. They're just, boom, there we go, they're there. It is low bandwidth, so I'm not sure exactly how much you can do with it. It's just, yeah. The whole thing makes me a bit itchy, because it's the idea of the fact that now, they're effectively creating a mesh network, even if it's low bandwidth, without consent, because you're using, the idea of your neighbours using network, that's why you have strong. I guess perhaps in the old days when none of us had passwords on our routers, we guess we're going back to that, aren't we, really? You could pick back off next door's network.
Yeah, I remember doing that.
Not that I ever did that, to add.
I was in London for something and was having trouble getting data, and you could just find hotspots everywhere, open Wi-Fi, not deliberate hotspots, but people with open Wi-Fi that you could connect to at least, and I managed to do what I needed to do, and then walked off, and yeah, so it got me out of trouble that one time, but yeah, kind of going back to that, yeah. Yeah, we'll see. But if this comes to the UK, I would be switching that off on my devices. I don't normally bother, really. I'm not really a tinfoil hat type thing. But I think in this case, I don't want that. I want to control it, so I will be turning that option. I'll be opting out.
Yeah, definitely. There was something else actually that happened today as well. Did you see the Raspberry Pi team are basically supplying the RP 2040 chip is actually now going to hit the channel as opposed to just the Pi Pico.
Oh right, so no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, well, this happened this morning actually, as we record. Today is the Tuesday, the 1st of June. What happened this morning was they announced that the RP 2040 microcontroller, which is a chip that's at the heart of the Pi Pico. The Pi Pico is a tiny little. It's not got enough horsepower to run a full-on Linux distro, although I believe people have made it work. But it's more aimed at as a microcontroller, and the board itself costs, I think, about $4. I think thereabouts, and it kind of has got a dual core Cortex on there. Running at 133 megahertz. It's got 264 kilobytes of RAM on board, all that kind of stuff, and which is not beefy compared to, say, a Pi Zero, but it's more than enough for a microcontroller. But of course, is on the board. Whereas what they've done today is they've dumped a whole load of the chips themselves into the channel. So instead of having to buy the board, if you're a maker or you're prototyping products, you can now buy the RP 2040 chip itself. And I think chip by chip it only costs $1. It's very, very cheap.
Wow.
Although compared to other microcontrollers at bulk, it's not that cheap at all, because they're even cheaper, and they come on on reels or on great trays of chips. But and I think they've dropped. I think they've pulled about 40,000 out of inventory, which they've dumped in the channel, and they're going to, I think, ramp up to a load more later this year. And I think it's kind of, they've seen the silicon shortage, because there is a big microcontroller shortage at the moment. We're aware how things are getting more expensive. I'm sure, Ian, you've experienced cars and things that having issues with getting hardware because the chips just aren't there. And the Pi guys, they've been relatively good or canny with their supply, as I understand it, and so they've been able to basically dump a whole load of these chips into the channel for people to pick up, and they're planning to really ramp up production in the next few months, and then drop the price even further. So I'm not quite sure what the price on a reel is going to be, but as I said, that $1 price, I think, makes it quite attractive. If you've been unable to get hold of microcontrollers elsewhere, hey, have this one. It does all kinds of things. It's a really powerful bit of kit.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I like the idea of that. Well, we'll be talking to them hopefully in a few weeks as well.
Indeed, we will. Yes, yeah. Obviously, we're going to head to yes. I did mention it every week. We're going to Cambridge and the Milton Keynes. So yes, we shall hopefully meet at least some representatives of the supply team to get some comments on where they're at, as well as going to those museums that are now open. Hooray!
Hooray!
Can't
Fantastic!
Wait. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, me too. Well, I think that's just about time we've got for this week. We'll be back next week. Where can we find you, Richard?
You can find me on Twitter at Richard_Speed, probably mainly talking about Lego at the moment.
Excellent stuff. And you can find me on Twitter at ISDixon, probably talking about 1986 drum machines. There's a massive community of us 1986 drum machine fans. Yeah, exactly. Right,
we'll are fans of 1986 drum machines.
Absolutely, yeah. So we'll be back same time, same place next week. Until then, we'll see you then.